Whoa, yeah. I'm feeling so alive, hearing the angelic sounds of our ancestors singing through the night for the supernova body. Listen to the realms of beyond, sacred wisdom healing my mind. Chakras align when I listen to Supernova Day. It's more than a podcast, it's a whole vibe. Expanding consciousness as you shift your mind. Tune into the supernova body so you can raise your vibration. Don't be afraid to make changes and create a new you. It's more than a podcast, it's a whole vibe. Expanding consciousness as you shift your mind. Supernova body, a cosmic party. New way of life, it's a supernova body.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of season 2 of Supernova Body Podcast, and I'm your host, Simone Michelle. And today's episode might be a little heavy. Okay, so I'm gonna preface it with that, and it is heavy with material that I didn't come up with. So I'm also gonna preface it with that. So if you are in a place where you might need some support in regards to parenting, this may be a really good episode for you if you are a Black person, right? If you identify as being a part of the Black diaspora in the United States. I do recognize that the experience for Black people is very different outside of America because Blackness is only a construct for the purpose of oppression here in America. Outside of that, it simply does not exist and have merit. And it is not a tool that other countries typically use. They use other methods, colorism, classism, whatever. But Blackness as a whole is used as an oppressive tactic here in America. So while this information is very heavy, it is not unnecessary, right? And sometimes we have to talk about things that are uncomfortable. Sometimes we have to address things because the help is available. And if we don't talk about them, then we won't know what to lay down and how to lay it down, right? And I am not sure if you can hear that mockingbird, but I hear it and it needs to take flight, right? But it is there and it is loud, and I apologize if that is a disturbance, but we shall continue. All right. So, while I am front loading you, these are the main references that I will be citing from today. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, because the book is amazing. Let's just be real. Energy Anatomy by Carolyn Myss, because it is definitely top 2, and it's not 2 of my favorite books. Break the Cycle by Marielle Buquet. It's either Buquet. I believe it's Buquet, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Phenomenal book. The concept of big T and little t trauma really helped make a shift in my life and put things into perspective, and I appreciate that. Torn Apart by Dorothy Roberts, which will primarily be what is referenced the most in relation to certain aspects of our conversation. And then the concept of intersectionality created by Kimberly Crenshaw, because phenomenal. And then, of course, Howard University School of Social Work, the Black perspective, because it is what I base my practice on. How I show up as a Black person, my fundamental core values, we just learned about that in relation to practice and being an MSW and future LCSW, and what that looks like going forward. So here we are. And this episode will definitely be laden with Howard University School of Social Work's approach to this topic, because I am Howard prepared, okay? I am a bison, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm very proud of that. I love the fact that that is a part of my life and that is my journey. Everybody has their own perceptions and perspectives on education, and I was not a fan of traditional methods. However, I'd never been in a space where I felt more seen or heard and understood on a core level. So shout out to you, Howard, regardless of all the other stuff. You're an amazing institution. That's all that matters. Okay, here we are. So let's briefly go over the Black perspective. What is that anyway? And did we just make it up? Did it come out of nowhere, or is there some merit? So Howard University has a concept that we must be educated and look at life through that lens, that the rest of the world is set up with their own lens, and we must learn how to navigate both that and this. So the Black perspective starts with affirmation, strength-based, social justice, recognition of diversity, and vivification. I feel like I'm missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, yeah, vivification. I still feel like I'm missing one, but I know I'm not. Yes, vivification. Okay, ha, got it. I just got to make sure, because, yeah. All right, so what that looks like in practice, in real life application, is when you meet with someone, and this is something you can apply to life, right? It doesn't matter if you are an educator, if you are a social worker, if you are a therapist, if you are a clinician, if you are a doctor, if you are a person that does customer service, it does not matter. If you approach people with the perspective of affirmation, you're choosing to identify their affirming attributes, meaning that doesn't excuse whatever mistakes that they're making in life, but it allows you to see that this person has affirmable characteristics and qualities about them that are worthy of notice and praise. So by taking that perspective, we aren't looking to fault find people. We're looking to affirm them where they are in their situation. Next thing is strengths-based, which essentially is the same thing, but deeper, because we're now looking at people for their strengths and resiliency. So how did you overcome this situation? Yes, you may have made a mistake, or something's not going right, or you're confused about life, but how did you do it? That's a strength. The fact that you were able to do that. And by taking that approach, we're also not focusing on the weakness. We're focusing on the ways that you succeeded, so that you can tap into that and continue to move forward. Social justice. Yeah, this is my thing. I definitely believe in justice in social capacities and spaces. But social justice is taking up the banner for somebody aside from yourself, whether it be something that directly affects you or does not. That can look like what's currently going on in California or different places with immigration, and choosing to fight with people that may not have the same plight as you today, but may have the same plight as you tomorrow. Choosing to fight for the rights of people, regardless of if you believe in what they're fighting for, as it doesn't relate to you, right? And that could look like LGBTQ plus, etc. Fighting for belief of people to have the ability to love and experience their sexual passions in whatever way they choose. Caveat, outside of children, I can't support or get with that aspect of the spectrum. It's an imbalanced power dynamic, and I will never, again, I'm a firm believer in imbalanced power dynamics not being legal or okay. Neither here nor there. Yes, so social justice and recognition of diversity within the Black community. So that is the diaspora, and that extends far beyond America, but it is Blackness as a whole, based on the criteria that America has established with Blackness, right? So we reach far past the boats, right? And the islands that they stopped at, and we encompass everyone. And that means that their issue is my issue. And, excuse me, their plight is my plight. And it's not just about me. And then vivification, which is the pursuit of liberation and equitable outcomes for Black families, right? Taking a stance that Black families will be treated respectfully when they come across your path. Does that require you to be Black in order for that to happen? No. It means that systemically, historically, Black people have been treated in such a way that has left them with insane amount of scars, right? Generational trauma that it does exist. And so we can't just, affirm it away or pray it away. It's there. And we have to be consciously aware of the steps we're taking to remove that within our bodies, our lives, etc. Yes, let's carry right on along, because I got my notes today and I'm gonna follow them. Okay. All right. So, okay. Howard prepares you with the Black perspective because most other institutions do not. And they do not realistically present information in a way where it's realistic and can be applicable to different cultures, right? It is only applicable and makes sense to the culture of America, which is what? Because it changes so much, it changes in order to protect and benefit what cultures, who gets protected. If we're going to be very honest, because this is a very honest conversation and it's hot, it might be a little uncomfortable, but this is rooted in facts. This is rooted in historical accuracy. It is rooted in personal knowledge and experiences. It is rooted in years of research to get a better understanding of what I was not taught, being raised in mostly predominantly white neighborhoods. So this is a near and dear topic that I have had to fight to understand and apply to myself in my own life in regards to parenting while Black, because there are some systems in place that definitely don't really support the concept in the way that we do culturally, right? All right, so let's carry it on. I want to make sure that I reiterate over and over and over again that this is not to push a narrative or a negative bias, right? This is to bring forth education and truth so that you're aware of what is happening, so that things can change within you, right? And within your family and within your bloodline, so that the trauma that has been inflicted upon people unjustly for decades, millennia, essentially, half a millennia, can stop, right? We don't have to have the same experiences over and over and over again. We can choose collectively to do things differently. I had a wonderful experience for my internship up in Berkeley, California, which is the birthplace of the Black Panthers, of the Black nationalist movement, essentially. The concept and the idea is very militant. And what I learned from my interactions with amazing people was that Black people are tired collectively of educating other people on how to treat us, right? And how to respect our boundaries. I have this concept that America is a narcissist and they just refuse to admit that there's anything wrong and refuse to change. And that's probably a whole nother episode. And I'll go into a whole lot more in-depth understanding much later, maybe a couple seasons down the line, because I'm telling you, this episode is heavy enough. Right now, it's just a little intro into whatever. There are so many other people that have touched on this topic, and that probably could provide you with a whole lot more in-depth information. However, I'm on a limited bit of time, and so I'm going to go through this in the best way I believe the information should be presented. Okay, so again, the purpose of this is to take this information and be better, to do better, have better, experience better, and be free from limitations that are imposed by others. It is not to reaffirm a bias or negativity or to put negative energy out there to bring negative experiences into your life. Absolutely not. This is not the space for that. This is not what we do here. This is for educational purposes to make sure that as you're digging stuff up by the root, nothing is left behind. Okay, so yes, I made it very clear, Howard. This is a Howard University concept of Black perspective mixed with all of the other people that I mentioned in the different books and literature. Okay, let's go down. What really sparked this episode was the thought that, can we pray away racism? Can we positively manifest racism away? Can we disconnect ourselves from attachments away ourself from racism? Does it matter what our personal belief system is in regards to racism or oppression? Or do we need to be consciously aware of that and educate our children on how to navigate what is definitely there? And when I think to myself what a realistic experience would be, that kind of takes away the mysticism and magic of religion and spirituality, where you can essentially create the world that you want to live in. And that is your experience. And that's all you experience, is what you believe about the world. But what happens when you are so centered in your experience, but a part of that experience is in fact racism? Then what? Are we to ignore it, act like it doesn't exist? Or do we act like the system exists and do our part in dismantling it? Where does our responsibility lie? If we believe in the Black perspective, then we believe that we have a part in that experience. The contrary and the contrasting side to that is that there are concepts like in Energy Anatomy with Carolyn Myss, where she shares that we have the ability to disconnect our energy from things that don't serve us, from situations and experiences that don't serve us. Can you do both? Is the question that I pose. Can you disconnect yourself when it becomes too much and you need to reground yourself? But can you still take hold the concept of fighting for others? Or is it not your business? Is it important to create your own personal reality? But how do you do that when you're parenting and your responsibility is kids that may not have reached that level of manifestation or mental maturity? How then do you navigate this world, right? And it has been something that I'm not 100% perfect on, and I probably will change my concepts in a couple of months or a couple of years. But today, where I am right now, I think that it's important that we do a couple things. Parenting while Black. And again, this is nobody's roadmap to success or perfection, because I don't believe that exists when it comes to parenting. I believe that the process of parenting in itself is a purification and a process of knowledge. And we're literally figuring it out as we go with every single child, because they're different, right? I have 3 and not one of them is the same. Not one of them requires the same approach, the same logic, the same choice of words. They're all uniquely different, because we are all uniquely different people. So what works for me in my house may definitely not work for you. And you may have no desire to adopt anything that I'm saying. Just listen and eat the meat and spit the bones. That's, You're here. You might as well continue. Okay. So, um, some situations that are unique to Black parents are having the talk. As a Black parent, I wonder how many of you have already had the talk with your kids, or do you believe that it's not relative because of the community that you live in or the experiences that you have set up for your children? Do you think that it's important to have the talk and explain to your children what oppression is, what historically has happened, and what approach do you take when you provide and give that information? Do you inform your children that we were brought here, or some of our ancestors were brought here? Do you say that we were already here? Do you have the concept or belief that we did not come here as slaves, but we came here as doctors and lawyers and kings and queens and princesses and people with amazing intellect? Or do you ascribe to the thought and notion that, oppression has taken away who we are? Where are you at in your conversation with your children in relation to their Blackness? What do you believe about Blackness? Do you adopt the concept of the Divine Nine, where you believe that education is everything and that being highly educated will essentially remove the burdens or restrictions placed on us by oppression? Or do you ascribe to the thought and concept that we are who we were always created to be, and no amount of oppression will ever take that away from us? What is your mindset or concept? These are all things to consider, but in having the talk, however you choose to have it, are you having it? And if you are having it, is it a stance of encouragement and affirmation and strength-based perspective, where you're looking at it as, we are a resilient people, we are strong, we have built everything here, we have built the foundation of this nation in which we still live. And the next, how do you promote racial identity and pride, right? How do you resonate with your Blackness? Is it something that you're proud of, or something that you hide and try to get away from? I remember my first semester at Howard, I was shook, right? I had been to a HBC before, and that experience shook me too, because, like I said, I was raised in suburban areas with predominantly white and others. There was only one or two of us in a class at a time. Weren't a whole lot of us at school. All the Black people knew all the Black people. It was that kind of situation. And it kind of continued that way until I got to my 20s. And then I really started to understand a different perspective of Blackness. And it really shook me to my core. So at my first semester at Howard, I had to really question, what do I identify as, and what is Blackness to me, and what does that look like, and how do I express that, and how do I want my children to express that? What do I want them to know about themselves? Do I want them to take a stance of assimilation, or do I want them to be proud and set apart? And what I learned is that, last 13 years, I've been very much so proud and very much so set apart. However, there's a way that I can deliver the information where my children feel empowered and feel special, versus feeling like they are forced to be different, forced to be extra Black all the time, every day, all day. Because Blackness looks different to everybody, and it is not for me or anyone else to decide what makes you Black, what makes you set apart, what makes you a proud person. But are you having the conversations with your children, right? Next, how do you address resiliency within Black people? How do you cope, right? In 2020, we were all at home, forced to be at home, and watching the news every day, all day long, watching so much social media, and some of us still do. And some of us are very tuned in to all of the polarizing events that are happening, and the racism and the blatant signs of disrespect and blatant signs of hatred, blatant speech of hatred, right? How are you explaining that to your children, right? How are you telling them, this is the language being used and this is the reason why it's being used? These are the things that are happening within our world that we live in, within our society, and these are the reasons why, right? How are you choosing to do that? Is it a stance of, how other people choose to treat you has little to do with you and everything to do with them? Or is it a perspective where you are focusing on the hatred of others? Or are you taking a strength based perspective and focusing on the strength of us as a people, right? Which can also be very exhausting. And when I say that, I mean that in every sense of the word, because strength ain't stupidity, right? And at times, people can take your lack of aggressive response as a lack of response, right? There is strength in silence, and there is strength in unplugging your energy. And I will use the Carolyn Miss example as a way to not support being docile, but choosing where to direct that energy, right? And I'm trying to pick my words real careful, real careful, like so. But Carolyn presents this concept or idea where we are when we're born connected to groups of people, things, experiences, and as we get older, we learn to disconnect and create our own identity, essentially create our own core values, and then we choose what to plug our energy into. So if someone is being hateful and you live in a space where you manifest peace and prosperity and love and joy, and that just doesn't serve you, unplugging your energy and not providing that anymore response is a strength. And it is a strength that I think people fail to recognize, because at any given moment, that person that is manifesting and positive and love and light can switch, right? And when that person switches, what you think gonna happen? Please read between the lines that are being read, right? It's a strength. And so teaching your kids that walking away doesn't mean that they're walking away from the experience or situation, but it means that your mind is so far ahead of that energy is no longer serving you, because you're focused on what you're building with your family, and nobody has the right to ruin that, right? Somebody's ignorance or whatever doesn't have the right to ruin that. However, I would be lying to you and myself if I said I didn't take pleasure in the moments where I was able to put somebody in their place when they tried to take me for a fool. However, what I think we learn is that the reason why they always say you go high and when others go low is because you don't want to stay in that energy, right? That energy breeds more negativity. That energy breeds more that you don't want to receive back. And that is the part where you can manifest or pray it away, right? You can get it out your space, right? I don't have time for it, but that's not to say that it doesn't come still, right? I wonder how you guys feel about that. I would love to know your perspective on everything that was said so far and how you navigate Blackness within your family, and how you speak to your children and what you speak to them about in regards to their Blackness and resilience and community, right? Which leads me to community. How do you create your community? What does community look like for you? I think the best part of being Black is the culture and community that we have created as a people. How you experience that definitely depends on where you live. And I'm looking at you, DC, because I love it there. I love it there, okay? Maryland, I like you. I do. I like you. And how Black people experience being Black there is just unapologetically authentic. And I love it. It is amazing. Just like in the Bay, you are who you are there. And that is what it is. That's why I'm a Bay born child. Okay. Um, yeah. Community intergenerational support is something that the book Torn Apart really, 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 really does a good job at explaining how systemic racism was put in place to dismantle intergenerational support. And now it is literally the selling point of homes, right? And before it was the concept of isolation and every person to a house and live in the suburbs and everybody get away from your core family and you create community within your neighborhood and not within your genetically connected family. um, there's a method to that, right? These things don't just happen by happenstance. They're not just things that have occurred. These are methodically planned out experiences. You're living in a world where people are methodically planning how to oppress and suppress people, right? And in that experience, how do you combat that? How do you get to a place where you've created a community so strong that you're unaffected by anything that is happening on the outside? I'll probably get to that in another episode because there are definitely ways, right? Um, these are all things that are happening, and there are concepts like redlining and zoning and grants and oops, you don't qualify, technicalities, and all of these different things. We're literally instructed to banks and companies that we're building and developing not to accept or do. It's just the truth of the matter. So if someone is methodically planning against you, I think it's important that you have a protection, right? Hedge of protection around you that keeps you safe, keeps you prepared, keeps you aware, versus just being oblivious and walking right into the traps that are set for you. Okay, so being in social work, the hardest part of acquiring my MSW was learning about social work. It made me question every day why I wanted to be a part of the system. And made me realize that, sometimes working within the system is not the way to fix it, right? But we're going to briefly go over the historical roots of surveillance and family separation. And I'm going to use some personal experiences because it's deeply rooted in my life, in my family, generations and generations. So I am Creek and Seminole Native American through my great great grandmother, Millie Hawkins. Millie Hawkins was both Creek, and full Seminole through her two parents, but she was only able to choose one tribe. So on her certificate, it said that she was half Native American, which is untrue because she's just two different types, right? However, Millie Hawkins had an orphanage for Native children, Creek children, so that they would be in the care of people that cared for them and that held the same values that they held. This is the history of social work, right? Separating families for the purpose of assimilation in order to create a sense of control for the dominant race, right? This happened with Native Americans. It happened with other nationalities and races, and it is very much so dominant still within the social work setting because social work families that do foster care or take and adopt children or foster children, they make money. However, it's not an assault on the families that have the heart to do what they're doing and take in children and love them and care for them when their parents and family members are not able to. It is when the state finds a way to funnel that money back into the state that it becomes an issue. And the book Torn Apart will tell you all about it. Okay, so if you have some time, please read that so you can have a better understanding. And then there are also so many cases that set precedents. However, I didn't write anything down today for that, but we can revisit it again. But this is the system that was set up so to force assimilation, right? And this goes back to intergenerational homes. By taking the child out and away from their kin, destroying the kinship relationships with grandparents or other family members, it removes the child from their culture and they lose that. And then they adopt the culture of whatever foster home they're in. And this is a tactic that has been used on everybody, right? In order to assert some type of control and to keep this oppression and suppressive narrative going, because it serves somebody. It serves somebody. And that's the truth. So if this is happening, how do you parent by black while being black in a way that isolates you from, not isolates you, but encompasses you, protects you from these systems that are in place? Well, the first step is probably not being in poverty, because poverty is the number one assault that the system uses on families. Poverty itself is the root of a lot of problems that people experience. And when we remove the trauma of poverty, because it is trauma, when we remove that, certain behaviors, tactics, and characteristics just seem to fall away. So when we talk about the history of social work, we also have to talk about the history of family separation in relation to slavery, how that was a tactic that was used for many, many years, hundreds of them, to breed people, actual people, like they were cattle and in chattel slavery, to produce the strongest offspring. And then moving the bucks, which were actual adult black men, around to different plantations, to the highest bidder, so that people would be able to have strong genes on their plantations. So this is real stuff that happened, right? People used to eat other people and make clothing and leather goods out of their body, like their skin. Like this is no secret, you know, nothing that should be suppressed. It is the truth, right? And that system of pain still resides within the body, right? And remember, Breaking the Cycle by Marielle Buquet really does a great job on touching on how that intergenerational trauma goes throughout the body, right? So does The Body Keeps the Score, but she really focuses on how we are unaware of these things still remaining within our body. We're holding the trauma of our great grandparents, and we don't understand why everybody has the same pattern of relationships. We don't understand why, everyone has the same concept of love, right? Where we beat our children in order to protect them from a far worse fate, right? Why we scream and yell out of frustration, why we don't understand why we're so upset, and emotional regulation is so difficult, because there's generations of trauma that hasn't been released. that is still stored within the body, still within our DNA, that once released can result in different choices and different ways of being that resonate with who we were before we ended up in the situation that didn't serve us for 500 years, right? So how do you talk about that with kids, right? And I'm not giving you any of the answers because it's not my job to create a template on how to do this for your children. You know your children better than anyone. We can collaboratively do it together, or you can just take these points and think about them and come up with your own concepts and ideas on how to do it. I just think it's important that we do it, right? And that we're all getting on the same page about doing it. And we're doing it in a way where we are affirmed and we believe that there's hope for tomorrow, because that has been taken for so long. The hope for tomorrow. And there's a system there that was designed to do that. Like, that blew my mind, okay? Oh gosh. Yeah, I definitely would cry a lot. Cry a lot in all of my classes, just distraught. Like, I thought I knew. Like, I thought I knew. Like, I read a good book. Yeah. I got more. I love reading. I love educating myself, but I wasn't fully aware of the systems, right? There was more information that I needed to understand so that I could really prepare my children and myself, right? And prepare my family members and my friends so that their eyes were open to what was happening so that we could make plans for a better community and a better life. Okay, so the social work system is essentially, I'm kind of running out of time. I'm trying to stay within time because I talked a little too much and I don't want to do this in 2 parts. I want this to be the episode, So I just would recommend that you can listen to I listen to it. Be mentally prepared, because Torn Apart is very hard to listen to. Okay, I'm not about to sugarcoat it. It is a very hard book to listen to. Okay, so if you were to listen to that, then I would follow that up with Energy Anatomy, so you could unplug, unplug, take it back, or Marielle Bouquet, because that is a great way of teaching you how to release that generational trauma, and it's written in a way where you can do it with family. You can do it with a whole community. Ooh, also, I can't think of the book name. I can't think of the book name, and I can't think of the author. It's not meant to be right now. It'll probably come to me later. Okay. So, systemic bias and disproportionality definitely plays a social work system. 2 moms walk into a hospital. One is wealthy, one is not. Who is going to be targeted for child removal? It happens time and time again. It's a tale as old as time, right? How do we look at parenting styles, right? An example would be free range parenting, which essentially in CPS terms is neglect. It is a concept where people kind of just let their kids be kids. Like, millennials, whoop, whoop. Millennials, you outside, you're running up and down the street. Nobody knows where you are, but you're safe enough. And you are having the time of your life being a kid. That is so frowned upon now. I think there was a case probably a year ago where a woman lost her children because they walked to school. And it was too far of a distance, they felt. But in other neighborhoods, that may just be the custom and no one bats an eye. So there's so many different case-by-case situations where this system doesn't apply fairly. And so because of that, people are disproportionately attacked in order to create that separation, because assimilation is still very much so a tool. And by that, I mean, what was it? Dear White People. It was a show on Netflix, which is like, it was really good. Upsetting at times, but really, really good. It definitely talks about that and talks about how assimilation is a tactic to make you look at yourself as less than, when who you are is everything. And somebody definitely wants to monetize who you are and sell it back to you later. I'm looking at you, New Age. I'm looking at you, because over there where we were, even if it was here, we were doing these things, right? And so it's so important that we get back to who we were, who we are at our core, because who we are at our core is enough. And we don't need someone else to say, don't do that, right? We know innately what to do as people. And when we get back to a space of being grounded and happy and peaceful, we do it flawlessly. I digress. Okay, so implicit bias in practice, which is why Howard University has the Black perspective, because you need it when you're dealing with other cultures. It doesn't just apply to Black people, it applies to all cultures. If I am working in an area that is predominantly Latinx, Latino, whatever you want to call it, Spanish, no, that's not right. I don't like that. I'm going to go with Latinx. I feel like that's appropriate and politically correct. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. I am going to familiarize myself with the culture as much as I can and ask questions. I'm not going to go in there thinking I know what's best for somebody and I don't even understand the beauty of their culture. If I can't find the strengths and affirm who they are as people, what am I doing here? The same as if I was to go into an Asian culture of some kind, whether that be Filipino or Vietnamese or Lao, they're all different. They're not the same. So I can't just assume that I know everything, right? And that how I see things makes sense, because culturally, how they practice and live and what's innate to them may be perfect. I just may be in the dark about it and not understand. And in their explanation, I can identify the strengths and affirm who they are and help them and guide them in ways if I have the knowledge. And if not, just hold their hand as they figure it out, right? Okay. So by taking that stance, and if we apply it in life, right, we wouldn't be so upset with each other when we're going out places and people are doing things that make no sense. Like, yeah, you cut me off, but you probably got to go get your kids and you stayed a little bit too late at work. We can start looking at life that way, right? And then the energy that we're giving out, you know, the person that we're becoming will come back to us in a positive way, and we'll have more opportunities to create change because we're parenting these children that now can go teach their friends and somebody else and their teachers, because kids do teach teachers, how to continue this, right? Have these conversations naturally where we don't shy away from them and only have them at home. Avoid having them in mixed company settings. All right. Okay, so a major part of the social work system that is set up, it is set up on fear, intimidation, distrust, and trauma, for sure. And so if we as parents need help, we don't often reach out to sources to get the help that we need. Instead, we keep our stuff to ourselves or keep it within settings that may not be the most beneficial. So it's finding that safe space where you could be around like-minded people and toss ideas back and forth and grow. And it just so happens I have a place for that. It's virtual group sessions with one another where we talk about stuff just like this. And we get support from one another on how to navigate situations just like this. And I guarantee there is a space, even if it's not the space that I've created, that will work for you, where you can get the help that you really need. And if it's not within the social work service settings, if it's not within a government facility, that's okay. Just find the community that can help you remain grounded, remain in the right headspace to make parenting decisions. And if that means you got to go to the county for services, go. So what? The stigma, right? That is built on a lie. Okay. I'm gonna start sounding like a conspiracy theorist. But the welfare queen was not black. Okay. She was not. They photoshopped her. And that's actually in the news report, right? Okay. It's in the newspaper. It was a whole thing. A whole thing. Okay. Just go look it up. Anyway, you don't have to worry about getting help, right? Let's change the stigma for that. Ask for support, and sometimes the spaces that we're in may not be able to provide it, but there is a way. And I don't know about other social workers and other people that have gotten education, but I know for a fact, I can bet my bottom dollar, if they are a Bison, Howard prepared MSW or social worker, they are provided with the tools on how to provide you with the resources you need. So I don't know if you need to Google Howard Bison prepared people, but they'll help you. Okay, they will help you. I know that because every therapist needs a therapist. Okay, every holistic practitioner needs a practitioner. You need somebody to just do it for you sometimes. And I know that my social work, my LCSW, licensed clinical social worker therapist, she, I think, went to Fresno State. But when I tell you she's definitely Howard prepared, even though she's not Howard prepared, she's very much so a helper, right? Yeah, so we're approaching my time limit. I didn't want to go over 50 minutes, but we're really getting close. Okay. Yeah. I have so many more notes. I have so many more notes, but we're going to keep it short, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here. All right, so how do you parent while black? At the end of the day, you do what comes innate, right? If you were to get into a calm, still space and talk to your divine creator, whether that's Jesus, whether that's Buddha, Allah, Elohim, whoever, what do they tell you to do? Can you hear them? Are they speaking to you? When you think about having happy children, what does that look like for you? When you think about your blackness, what does that feel like for you? What does it do to you to know that you are black? I think one of the biggest blessings of recognizing that I was black was realizing that I was born set apart. Whether it be because people chose to not like me because of my skin, or to assume they knew me because of it. I was set apart on purpose for a reason in this country. I could have been born black in any other place and it wouldn't have mattered. But I was born black here. That was on purpose, for a purpose. And yes, I am proudly Native. Yes, I am proudly Scandinavian, and that's okay too. But I'm also forward presenting 100% black. Okay? My hair didn't get none of the memos. All right? None of the memos. None of my other ancestors played any parts. Okay? In my hair. And that is okay. I'm proud. I'm proud of it. But what do you feel? I remember talking to my best friend. Well, my best friends. It was actually a lot of different conversations when I first started going to Howard about colorism, and a lot of projects I had to do around what it felt like to be black. And I had to challenge myself. So I challenge you. What does it feel like? Does it feel good? Are you proud? Or are you not? Because if you're not, or you have some conflicts, that conflict is being passed on to your children, and eventually they're going to have to figure it out or assimilate. What do you want for them? It's your choice. I think that it's possible that if we learn to really love who we are, the loud, the ghetto, the ratchet, the educated, the bougie, and really love who we are on the spectrum of us, we can find ways to help for real and really truly help ourselves first before we try to help anybody else. And that includes our little people, right? That rely on us for everything. Some days I don't have it. My energy be low. Okay? And I recognize that and I communicate that. And I think it's okay to find support with other parents so that we can talk it through. There have been times I haven't parented proudly, right? But in having the support of other parents, I found my inner strength to make it through, right? And sometimes it's not other parents. Sometimes it's just people that care about you and love you and see the best in you. And that is what I see in Black people. I see that we have so much in us. And if we didn't, people wouldn't create systems to oppress us, right? In a sense, we have to take our power back and unplug from energy that doesn't serve us collectively so that we can take time out to heal. And I think that is the perspective that I learned from being in Berkeley, that sometimes it's time out of educating other people and just speaking to ourselves and healing that generational trauma that exists so that we're giving our kids a head start so that they have full power, you know. So that's Parenting While Black. And I hope that there was something that you were able to get from today. And it wasn't just a whole bunch of heavy mess, but it was informative. And at least you have some books that you could like read yourself, low key, or listen to, maybe on YouTube for free sometimes. Or Audible, which is my favorite. That's where I build my real library. The books I have here are they're cool. You know, I like to read them when I have the time, but I'm mostly in commute. So Audible allows me to listen to a lot of books. Yeah. Yeah. So I forward that secret to you. And do with it what you will. And I hope that this is just a starting point for a wonderful conversation of positivity and love, because let me tell you something. I don't tolerate no foolishness. So we're gonna push out that positivity, that love, that peace, that joy, all of that good stuff. And I'm gonna thank you. I'm very grateful if you lasted this long in the conversation. But keep it going. Again, supernovabody.com. You can hit me up on social media sites and ask me questions and stuff. I'll answer so long as it's not too long, because I don't always got time for long questions. But I'll do my best. Have a beautiful day, night, wherever you're listening, whatever you're doing. Okay, bye.